Alright, this is going to be my updated guide for Valorant and any game really, just to how to optimize your PC and get everything you can out of it. Most of this is going to be pointing you in the right direction of things. If you want to get an optimization done by myself, you can message me on Twitter at ShackCS. You just send me a DM, and my prices are $40 US or $50 Canadian, and I do BIOS and Windows for you. But again, you can do most of this stuff yourself. It's just more if you don't want to mess it up or if you're just scared of things, you can come to any PC optimizer like me, or I recommend Trippy as well. Also, this is just plugging my Twitch. I'm trying to stream on Twitch more. If you find this video helpful or just want to support me, if you could follow me on Twitch, sub, whatever you'd like to do. So let's get into it. First thing's going to be going over just your PC in general. So first thing is RAM slots. Making sure your RAM is slotted properly is very important. You won't be able to run XMP properly or like overclock your RAM properly at all if your RAM is not in the right slots. So what you can do is you can just Google search your motherboard and you can find out what the memory configurations are. Most likely, they're always going to be like this. If you have one stick of RAM, it's going to go in the A2 slot here. Two sticks of RAM, which is most people. Most of you are going to have two sticks of RAM. You need to make sure they're slotted in B2 and A2. A lot of people, when they build their PCs, pre-builds should come like that, but it's always good to check. It should be slotted in the second and fourth slots, not the first and third slots. That's very important. Make sure you do this, especially if you're putting your RAM in XMP. Next thing, I'm just going to be going over the inside of your PC, just things you should be making sure that are done, especially if you built your PC. If you built it for your first time or something, you need to make sure these things are properly taken care of. Airflow. The way you place your fans in your computer, you need to have good airflow, or else you're not going to be able to get the most out of your PC. If you don't have good cooling, you're not going to be able to overclock and take full advantage of your CPU, or be able to take overclock and take full advantage of your GPU. You need to make sure you have the right cooling, especially just even if you go buy fans and install them. It's very good to have good airflow. So this is just a general guide of how airflow works in a PC. You want to set your fans up so that the intake fans are coming in through, you can do it however, but you can just search up fan case airflow. This is how I have mine set up. I have an exhaust fan back here, two exhaust fans up top, and then I have three. Actually, I don't have three. Sorry, I have two intake fans at the front. Because as we know, hot air rises, so you want the air pushing up. This is why you want your exhaust fans up this way, and you want your air intake fans coming in through the front. This just makes sense, and I highly recommend that you guys check that your airflow is working this way because you don't want to trap hot air inside your case and just have it overheating your computer. You get blue screen errors, maybe your FPS will just randomly tank here and there. It could be a cooling issue. Cooling issues are huge. Another big thing is making sure you have good thermal paste. Replacing your thermal paste is very easy to do, and I highly recommend doing it, especially if you have a really old PC. Just look up a video on how to replace your thermal paste or how to reapply new thermal paste. You can buy some on Amazon, you can buy the cleaning kit, and you can learn how to do it yourself. It's not hard to do, and again, highly recommend. The next thing is slotting your GPU correctly. Make sure you slot your GPU in the first PCI slot. Make sure it's not, so according to this diagram here, this one here is my first PCI slot. I do not want to slot it in the second one. I want to slot it in the first one up here. That's also very important to get the maximum utility out of your GPU. Make sure to slot it in the first PCI slot. Pretty straightforward things. If you have any more questions about the inside of your PC or just things like that, just put them in the comments. I'll try to reply to them. Sorry, one last thing I forgot to touch on is your power supply. You got to make sure that your power supply can support all the parts in your computer. If you go to this website here on Newegg, you can just put in all your specs here and it'll tell you what the recommended power supply watts is, like what the suggested how many watts you should buy for your power supply. So here, like let's say I had a 5950X, a 3080 Ti, 16 gigs of RAM, 512 solid state drive. This is my recommended usage. So I probably want to buy a power supply within these watts here. Pretty straightforward. Again, if you don't have a power supply that can support all your parts, you're gonna just run into issues, or it's just not gonna be able to, you just won't be able to get the full pull out of all your parts. Next, BIOS tweaks. So BIOS tweaks, they're pretty much just overclocking is your main thing. Overclocking is really a really good thing to do, especially if you want to pull the full FPS out of your CPU. You need to, how do I say this? You need to take advantage of your CPU. You'll get more frames pretty much. Like, so if I bought a 5900X and I just left it stock, I'm gonna get X amount of frames. Let's say I go into the range and I benchmark, I'll probably get between 800 to 850 frames. If I apply PBO or some kind of overclocking to it, I'm gonna get 1100, maybe even plus that in the range. And that's just for benchmarking wise. You'll see better highs and better lows. And people always say like, oh no, like will overclocking affect my CPU over time? Yeah, of course it will. Like let's say a CPU generally lasts 15 years and I overclock it. If I overclock it the right way and I have the right cooling, you're probably going to get like 8 to 10 years out of it still. And I'd hope that within 8 to 10 years you'd replace your CPU. But if not, and it's just something you're afraid to do, then don't do it. This is just generally what I say. Again, it's better to get someone to take a look at your PC and do the overclocking for you. But again, if you're pretty savvy, tech savvy, you can do it yourself. It's not hard to do, and you just have to do the research. But I'm going to go over AMD right now. So AMD, you want to use PBO. Don't static overclock an AMD processor. Use Precision Boost Overdrive. That's what it's called. So all you have to do, again, simple Google search or Reddit search. So here, like let's say I search Reddit and I type in how to use 39, what's the best PBO for my 3950X. There's so many threads on what to do, and how to pull the best things out of PBO. You just have to do the research. Again, Google, let's say I want to learn about my 5900X. For 5900X or any 5600, 5800, 5900, 5950X, you want to use PBO with something called Curve Optimizer. You can Google it and you'll see it's called undervolting, like here. Absolutely worth doing. Ryzen 5000 undervolting with PBO2, absolutely worth doing. Blah blah blah. There's a ton of guides on it. Again, if you buy an optimization through me, I do this for you, and yeah, again you can Google it, but if you're not sure on where to go in your BIOS and stuff, yeah, that's that's the most I can say out of that. Here are my settings though that I really recommend if you're going to do it yourself is enable PBO. Make sure XMP is enabled for AMD systems. You want to make sure that your FCLK frequency is set to exactly half your RAM speed. This doesn't apply to Intel. Use Curve Optimizer, and if you have a 30 series card, make sure you put on resizable bar. Sorry, that applies to Nvidia cards, not to AMD cards. AMD GPU cards, sorry. For Intel, again, simple YouTube, Reddit search, how to overclock i9 9900K. Reddit, how to overclock 10900K. Just simple Google Reddit searches. For Intel, I highly recommend, obviously there's no such thing as Precision Boost Overdrive, but you want to do a static all-core overclock, and there's a lot of guides on it. Again, I keep saying again, but I do these when I do my optimizations, I overclock Intel and AMD depending on how good your cooling is. That's another big thing is making sure you have the right cooling if you're doing an overclock. Having a liquid cooler is very important, especially if you want to push very good overclock, like static high overclocks. There's really good like standalone fan ones as well, but liquid cooling is probably the best route. I highly recommend the Arctic Liquid Freezer. It's probably one of the best liquid coolers on the market. Yeah, that's the most I can touch on that. Next is Windows tweaks. So a lot of people fall into something which is obviously called the placebo effect, and there's so much bad information about tweaking Windows. There's so many tweaks out there and so many tweakers, and there's all this useless shit that they throw at you that doesn't do anything. If anything, you're holding yourself back from like getting better, you personally, skill wise. It's nothing to do with your PC. If you have a clean PC with not much on it, and you like obviously you don't have just tons of shit on it. You're not downloading tons of shit. Yeah, those small things can make effects because they can be slowing down your PC in the background. But At the end of the day, you are limiting yourself back. Don't think, oh, I need to apply this tweak to get lower input lag and this tweak. It's most likely going to do more damage than anything. So here we go right here. Windows 10 Optimization Fast Track by Freethy. All you have to do is search this, go to this YouTube channel. This is the best guide you can follow. It's 16 minutes, very simple to do. All you need is a USB stick. He also has a video on how to do it without a USB stick. You will be wiping your PC. And I don't want to hear complaints. I don't want to wipe my PC. I don't want to get rid of all, like, oh, too much work. No, it's not that much work. Back up your files. You're going to be wiping your C drive mainly. If you have a D drive, if you have like an external hard drive or you have another hard drive in your computer, drag all your files on there. Do the optimization through the, like, watch this video, do the optimization, and bring all your clips back. Bring all whatever you need back. It's not hard to do. And this will really, really help the performance of your computer. Having a clean build of Windows is great. It's perfect, and it's mainly what people need is a clean. People always complain like I get these errors or like this is slowing me down. I always say, have you reinstalled Windows? Have you tried a clean full build, like clean full install of Windows? Because that is very important to do. Overclocking, clean install of Windows. Biggest two things you can do. Obviously hardware, actually. Hardware comes before that. Hardware is obviously the most important thing, and then going from there. Hardware, BIOS, Windows. Watch this video and please, I hate the complaints about oh, I have to wipe my PC. No, just back up your stuff and do it. Next is GPU overclocking. If you have a 30 series graphics card, you want to undervolt your GPU. Undervolting will reduce the temps and actually increase performance. All you have to do is search how to undervolt. Again, this is only for 30 series cards. How to undervolt 3090, how to undervolt 3080. You're going to use a tool called MSI Afterburner. And here's mine. I have a 3080 Ti right now in this PC. And I have these set. I have my fans on 100%. And I have a curve of 875 over 1845. Could probably push that even higher, but I'm fine with how safe this is. Again, that's just for me. You should Google how to undervolt. If you're using a 2080 or 2060 or something, you just search up how to overclock 2080 Ti, how to overclock 2060. Pretty straightforward stuff. And YouTube and Reddit will be your best friends here. Next, monitors and Overdrive. So if you go to, there's a website called Artings. I touched on this on my last video, my last optimization guide. Search up your monitor and they'll tell you, they pretty much review monitors and they tell you what the best settings are. There's something called Overdrive built into monitors. If you go on the side, usually on like good gaming monitors, there's something called response time or like, I'm gonna try to say Overdrive is another word, I guess. And you want to set that to whatever they recommend. So there's something called overshoot on monitors. And if you set your, let's say your monitor has settings like fast, super fast, and extreme. Most likely you don't want to set, people are just like, oh, extreme is definitely the best. No, extreme, yeah, will have like the lowest times, like response times, but the overshoot and the ghosting is going to be very, very high. And you need to compensate by that. You can't, yeah, you'll have the lowest response time, but ghosting is a huge thing and you won't be able to track properly. You won't be able to trace enemies properly. You need to make sure that you find that sweet in between. So for my monitor here, the best recommendation is fast. Like if we look at this, it's probably going to show, let's see the tables here. So on fast, this is the bet that it has zero overshoot and it has the rise fall times like 3.1 on average. Then if we go to the next one, which is super fast, 1.9, but we're talking like way bigger overshoot. And then if we go to extreme, we're talking huge overshoot with the low, and the response time isn't even that much lower. So I could compensate and use super fast if I wanted like a small bit of overshoot, but fast is probably going to be my best setting here to go with. Again, just do the research on your monitor and just, again, Reddit, Google are your best friends. Just if you have like a BenQ monitor, just BenQ, just search up BenQ, whatever the monitor model is, and type in overdrive. It's very important to set your overdrive properly so you don't get all that overshoot. Next is going to be Valorant in-game settings. So here, let me enable game capture and go into Valorant here. So for me personally, I run my video under my general. I play on stretched. I play 1024 by 1024, which is super weird, but I don't know. I like it. Again, people say that stretched versus native is their input lag difference. The tiniest bit, but it's not going to make that big of a difference. It's not game changing. We're talking like sub zero point 0.5 milliseconds, like nothing that's going to be noticeable to the human eye. So if you want to play stretched, go ahead and play stretched. Um, yeah, I play 1024 by 1024, all of these off, on plus boost. If you want to, you can cap your FPS. If you have really good cooling and you want to leave, you want the lowest input lag possible, you can let your frames run free. But just remember that when you get into gunfights where your FPS is always fluctuating, that you are not going to have consistent input lag. So the way you shoot and the way you react will always be changing, like based off of what you see on your screen. If you cap your FPS at a certain point and it's not fluctuating, staying around the same, you're going to have constant, like you have, what am I trying to say? You'll have consistent gunfights. That's what I'm trying to say. You have consistent gunfights and your input lag will always stay around the same because your FPS isn't fluctuating from like 700 to 400 to from 500 to 300. It's not going everywhere because based off what your FPS is while you take those gunfights is determined on how the input lag is registered, right? So if you have a constantly going FPS, if you have a capped FPS that's constant, your input lag is going to generally stay around the same. But if your FPS is not capped, it's uncapped and it's everywhere, your gunfights are going to range in difference of input lag. So holding an angle, if there's like a Viper and Astra going crazy, your input lag is going to be very different than if all that stuff wasn't there. Graphics quality. I run everything on medium, off, 2x, 4x, off. Most of this is just personal preference. Obviously, if you have a low-end PC, you're going to want to run everything on low, this on none, this on 1x. If you have a pretty good PC, you can run these on medium, and just anti-aliasing and anisotropic filtering just look better. Just makes character models look better. Same with like if you want to run improved clarity, all these things. Like once you get into the higher end PCs, this stuff doesn't really make a difference. Obviously, you just want to have VSync off, but that's that. Stats, I just have client FPS on. My crosshair, I just run 1110. This, just a small dot. Yeah, that's really it. This is my sense. I run 800 DPI. Yeah, going back to the rest of this now. Nvidia control panel settings and best driver. So currently at this time on July 5th, 2022, my highly recommended driver is 512.95. When you run, if you do the free optimization, most of the stuff's done for you, but it's better to just go through and check. I run use advanced 3D image settings. I run all this off. I run fixed refresh, not G-Sync right now at this time. Select my GPU here before maximum performance, blah, blah, blah. I'm just going to scroll through. You guys can copy these if you want. If you're running G-Sync, obviously you're going to want to turn V-Sync on and G-Sync on here and make sure this is on highest available. Select my GPU here. If you want to add a custom res, you just hit customize, create custom resolution, 1024. Let's say you want to run that, it'll appear here. I run 80% digital vibrance. All this is just not touched. Make sure that your GPU is plugged in, your monitor is plugged into the first display port. If you go to the setup digital audio, you can see that let's say your GPU has 3 display ports. You want to make sure that it's just plugged into the first one. There's a big toss of whether this makes a difference or not, but why not just plug it into the first one, right? So if you go here, you can actually see which one. If it says like your monitor's here, your main monitor's on the third one, just move it to the farthest left one. You just plug it in until you figure out when it's on the first one here. Here we have, if you're running native, you're going to be running perform display scaling or GPU scaling. Again, people say display scaling has lower input lag. I don't know. Some people say that the new 30 series cards have actually perform better on GPU scaling. That's just, I don't know, a big toss up. I run GPU scaling personally with my 30 series card, and because I play stretched, full screen, override the scale mode set on programs and games. Sorry, I had it on no scaling because I was playing Fortnite and I play Fortnite on 1920. Yeah, if you play 1920, you want to use no scaling. Yeah. Next, adjust video color settings. Click here with the Nvidia settings and choose full here. Adjust the video image settings. Choose use the Nvidia setting. Use the Nvidia setting. That's it for that. Oh shit. Fuck my phone. Rip. Um, what else is on here? Resizable bar. To make sure resize bar is on, if you did enable it, you just go to system information. You can see it here. Resize bar, yes. Again, a Google search on that. It only works for 30 series NVIDIA cards. You can look it up what it does. It's just better performance pretty much. If it says no and you do have it on, it means you need to update your GPU. Again, YouTube, Google search that. All right. Last thing would be a UPS. It's always good to invest in a UPS, especially if you have expensive equipment. They just protect you, and they have equipment guarantee. Like this says, equipment guarantee of $500,000. It's just good to have just in case of a power surge or just certain things that happen. Some of them have built-in backup batteries. Like let's say your power goes out for like just it like cuts in and out. Your internet and your computer will stay on because you're connected to a UPS with a battery backup. Just it's good to have, and I highly recommend buying a UPS. And that's it for the video. That's pretty much everything I cover. Oh shit, one last thing actually that I forgot to cover is MSCONFIG. So this is another big thing. MSConfig, if you let's say I play VR a lot and I play other games as well. And having all these programs running in the background, it pretty much it slows down my computer. And when I play VR, I use my computer sometimes. When I game, I'm obviously not using my VR, so I want to disable certain things. If you type in msconfig and come to services here, hit hide all Microsoft services. Here it shows me all the programs I have installed here for everything that I have going. When I run VR, I'm going to go and check all these things here. Virtual desktop, this. I'm going to turn that all on when I'm playing VR. When I'm not playing VR, I'm going to disable all these because I don't need them. If I'm only playing Valorant, I'm going to have VGC enabled, Nvidia, and BattleEye service. Well, I don't even need that, but I'm going to have that enabled and that's it. If I'm playing Fortnite, enable all these three, take off Riot Games. Like and then again, you have to restart your computer when you do this. So if I'm playing Valorant, I'm gonna have these three checked, hit OK, I'm gonna restart my computer to apply those changes. That's a very good thing to do, especially if you don't want to slow down your computer while you're gaming, especially if you're a big VR player. Very important to do. Disable those services while you play games. That's it. That covers the whole video. Hopefully you got something out of that. Again, if you want to support me, Twitter, Twitch. Twitch is probably the biggest thing. Sub to my YouTube. I highly appreciate it. Thanks for watching. If you have any comments, just leave them down in the comment section. I'll try to get to them as they come through. Peace.